If the ego is the only one that is the driving force that will leave the soul weeping in the backseat. If you consciously choose a shortcut, you will end up with the longest route possible. All flowers bloom in due time. That means you cannot force a flower to bloom, as you cannot force a soul to bloom.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vibrant Soul Society, The Conversations. I'm your host, Baba Sam, the Miracle Man. Today we have a very bright, vibrant soul with us, Andy. So, Andy, welcome to the Conversations.
Thank you for having me, Baba Sam. Let's make some miracles and let's show people that nothing is set in stone and
Right.
anyone can change.
Absolutely nothing is set in stone. So, let's begin. Who is Andy?
Andy is just a name that I'm using in this incarnation as my ego is. And sometimes ego is the driver in this journey called life. The important thing is for it to be balanced between the ego and the soul. Because if the ego is the only one that is the driving force that will leave the soul weeping in the backseat, that will lead to life full of grief and sadness. Because the soul knows exactly what you should experience because it co-created your life before you have even been born.
All right. That's probably very deep for a lot of people because most people are saying, who are you? They go into their identity, their ego. So, how'd you move beyond that to see that it was just an identity? It wasn't really you. Like, I'm a male, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. How'd you move beyond that? What was your pivot point?
I started the journey step by step. I have been building brick by brick beautiful castle for my soul to live. So if there was one pivotal point, I don't believe if the journey is long enough, there would be countless of those points. What is important for an individual is to keep moving forward because no one apart from us would do journey. So it's about embracing who we are. And sometimes it's about unbecoming who we think we are so we can become who we are destined to become.
What was the pivot point in your life? Was there a pivot point like, I'm this person, I'm doing this, but wait a second, I am not really this identity. Was there something specific that happened in your life that caused you to go on this spiritual quest?
I'd say I was always prodigal son. I was fighting my destiny. And truth be told, as many spiritual people, I have been born as highly sensitive, which in itself is a form of coping mechanism to a trauma that has occurred early in my childhood that caused me to be hyper vigilant. And as a consequence, I was super aware of the environment, always searching for the next threat. That allowed me to not only be aware of the secret of the universe, but as a consequence, I could sponge other people's energies. That gave me unique perspective on life to the point that it was so different to everyone else. I could come up with the only possible explanation. I am crazy. There's something wrong with me. I need to find something to make me whole again. And I started this search for Holy Grail. But guess what? God, nature doesn't make mistakes. Everything between heaven and earth is perfect, including me. My ego was the problem. I was fighting myself, my thoughts and emotions. This search was doomed to fail from the start.
Right. So you saw that you weren't living your life. It's interesting. You use the term the secret of the universe. What is that to you, the secret of the universe?
There are some laws that are universal and some laws created by humans, which they abide because the subconsciousness accepts pretty much anything and can be made as a rule. But there are some universal truths that abide the laws of nature. For example, it doesn't really matter if you're Christian, Jew, or Muslim. You're gonna inhale and exhale. You can modify the process, but this is how we humans breathe. one of the natural laws is that everything comes in a season. Right now, it's fall. Fall amplifies the conditions of the skin and lungs because it's related to the lungs. And emotions that are related to the lungs are grief and sadness. And this is exactly the reason why during fall those emotions are amplified. But this also means that this is the perfect season to cleanse the lungs. Anything can be made into a law. In fact, people have internal laws that they call beliefs. The problem is, on the long enough timeline, all beliefs will become glorified restrictions because sooner or later we will outgrow them and they would hinder our progress. It is like going on a journey from one destination to another using signposts to get to destination. Let's say you're using signposts to get to London. Obviously, you can get there by any means possible. But once you get to London, that signpost is no longer relevant and you need other signposts. So what is true to one being might be complete foolishness to another being.
Right. So, yeah, that's just some really deep wisdom that people might not quite get because they're not used to living this way.
Mhm.
They're always taught that we need to figure things out, do all these mental activities. But it sounds like you just
Mm.
found this deeper compass within you. It's what you're saying before the world is crazy and what's really going on here seemed to be really your pivot point that you saw all the craziness in the world or people being trapped by their identity, their beliefs. Somehow you just saw like, wait a second, this is all craziness. They're all following this mental programming. What's really going on here?
I was no different. And to a degree, I am still crazy because my reality, my environment is the result of my thoughts and emotion. This is only true for me, but for some other being, it might be completely irrelevant. What is the first step on this journey that all people should do is to build it brick by brick. Because if you start building your castle for the soul, starting from the roof is going to fall on your head in the least expecting moment. So instead of doing meditation or breathing exercises, start working with the body. All great arts from the East usually start this way. It's either yoga or kung fu, and you train the body until you reach the level where you can work with the breath. When you can work with the breath, you need to forget how to work with the breath. So you can work with energy and you can move into the realm of meditation. But if you jump straight into meditation, it is like going to a gym on your first day and trying the hardest exercise. Nothing good can come out of it.
But I would have the counter view because I started with meditation where through meditation, I saw that I had thoughts, but I wasn't my thoughts. If I'm not my thoughts, who am I? That's
Hmm.
how I began my journey was to realize I wasn't my thoughts.
I would like to say that I started with meditation as well, which is kind of funny. And I believe that perhaps this is why it took me so long. The funny thing is, if you observe the nature, there are some laws that are just absolute. Like all flowers bloom in due time. The flower does not think when to bloom, it just blooms. So you can either think about blooming or you can just bloom, but you cannot do both at the same time. It's like going left and right at the same time. It's not possible.
Right. So you also began with meditation. What started your meditative process? What was your prompt to start meditating?
Mm, Looking from retrospective, I was pushed forward by being not enough, by being in lack, that there is something wrong with me. So I started to explore different modalities. The first modality that I worked with the mind was mantra meditation. Then I moved to silver mindfulness technique, then Vipassana. Currently, I'm meditating using esoteric Tao meditation or using meditation movements such as Tai Chi Chuan or Qigong. Tai Chi Chuan is my favorite and primary method of development. To a degree, we are all the same because we are sparks of this great soul that is using us as its vessel to experience itself. We consciously choose to experience different things. You might also say that God dealt us different color. It's not our fault that we have been dealt this color or that color, but it's our responsibility to do the best with what we have. I have not experienced craziness as such, but I have experienced abuse, bullying, injustice. All of those emotions highly relate to the spleen, or that my spleen was imbalanced. And in fact, I do believe that this is also the reason why I started my business, because I wanted to prove my worth to the world. I wasn't sure of it. My actions are not enough. And if my actions are not enough, my results are not enough. And as a consequence, I chose to overcompensate and used to hustle and grind, which leads to syndromes as a burnout because this friction, this heat is evaporating the fluids, especially of the kidneys. It weakens the kidneys and make you full fears, trauma, and remorse. So the thing is, you need to accept the cards that you have been given and you cannot run away from it because the faster you run away from who you are, from your emotions, the faster those emotions will chase you.
That's an interesting concept. If you're trying to run away from who you really are, your emotional buildup gets stronger. I can see the truth behind that because you're ignoring your own wisdom, your own insights.
In the end, the greatest teacher in life you can have is one, yourself itself, because it always know what to do, and life itself. Obviously, that takes some time to reach that stage where you can read the sign of life. So be aware that, or perhaps talking to someone in the audience, that we in the Western struggle with finding things right here, right now, but it doesn't work. The faster you want something, the more time it takes. The world itself is built on duality. So if you consciously choose a shortcut, you will end up with the longest route possible. But if you choose consciously the longest route possible, it will eventually become a shortcut.
It's interesting how that paradox works. The more you
Yeah,
chase something, the longer it takes, but the more you can relax and be open to receive it is the quicker path. But we're impatient in this in society that things have to be right here, right now, which of course pushes it away. That's
humans instinctively do the opposite of what we should do. And I believe those are the lessons we need to learn. If you knew the answer, you could probably solve the issue. But those life lessons are like patterns that could be explained or compared to a hamster running on a wheel. Doesn't really matter if the hamster runs left or right. He will still be caught in this loop. Actually, it's moving beyond that. For example, if a person is sick, he thinks about sickness, he thinks about health. But if the person is healthy, he takes that for granted. He doesn't think about being healthy and he doesn't think about sickness. So, truth be told, only person that is struggling with particular pattern, that pattern is real to that person and only to that person. And that is most likely the reason why that person doesn't see that. Although it might be super obvious to the people in his or her surroundings.
that's where I tell people too, if you're focused on healing yourself or being healthy, you're most likely getting yourself in the way. You're actually going to make it
Yes.
longer. It's going to push it away. For my healing journey, I was never focused on healing myself. I just wanted inner peace. And through
Mm.
peace, the body came back into balance.
That is a great explanation. One of the modality I know is Reiki. I'm a grandmaster in Usui and Mani Reiki. If you focus on healing someone, you might make the disease worse, or you can absorb the disease because you perceive it as sickness. But the truth is, it's just old energy that is no longer serving you. If you allow the energy to move through you, it will be like a riverbed. And eventually, with time, it moves because the body knows how to heal. And the biggest thing you can do, and the hardest thing you can do, is not interfere with the process.
That's what I talk about all the time is this mental interference that everything's
Mm.
trying to come into you to be received, but the mind's saying, no, 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 with all this mental interference, even though we're trying to heal or whatever it is, you're actually pushing it away. It's resistance.
I like to give an example that if you have a splinter in your head and you just do this, you brush it, you massage it, the splinter will get deeper and deeper into your head to the point that you won't be able to remove it. But if you just don't interfere with the process, do nothing, and by nothing, I mean have no thought at all, the splinter will be removed from your body by the body itself.
Right, because the body does know how to heal itself. It's like a paper cut. If you focused on your paper cut, like, oh, this paper cut's really bad, and you really start focusing your attention on it, that's paper cut will mostly become infected because you're giving it so
Mm.
much attention. But if you let oh, it's just a paper cut, no big deal, and you just forget about it, in a
Mm.
couple days, it'll be fine.
One of the greatest lessons in life that I believe all of us sooner or later will need to go through and experience is the lesson of having no attachment. And it is the ultimate lesson because it's very hard not to be attached to anything. But this is the essence of life. If you are able to have no attachments, you are dancing through life with least effort possible. And then magic happens because you are not interfering with the process. That's one. But the thoughts are energy itself. And if you conserve that energy to yourself, it is similar to saving money to buy a house. If you save money, you can eventually buy a house. But if you spend money on mundane stuff, there is no possibility that you will save enough money to buy a house.
And so the no attachment is very important key to get. It's like from the Bhagavad Gita, it mentions focus on the
Mhm.
task at hand, not the fruits of your labor. The
Yeah.
fruits are the rewards. That's the attachment. But if you were just here in this moment, doing your best and not worrying about the outcome, not attached to it, that would actually work out better.
Let's say one has a goal to achieve. There are countless ways for that goal to be achieved. Let's say I want to climb a mountain. And me, myself, using my logic, using my mind, I can only see particular options to reach the top of the mountain. But there are so many ways to reach the top. In fact, if my ways would work, I would already be at the top.
It's about not figuring things out. Like we were saying,
Mm.
getting to the mountain, the mind tries to figure things out, and it actually becomes a hindrance.
I think that's a very big thing for people in the West that we allow the mind to use us. And we perceive life through the lenses of the mind, which again is an illusion. It might serve us or it might not. And it might serve us right now. But in the long run, we will definitely outgrow it. So I don't think there's nothing wrong with the mind or emotion. Those are tools that have been given to us so we can experience reality. But this is a very powerful tool. The mind and the emotion are tools for us to be used. So it's perfectly fine for the user to use the tool. But when the tools are using the user, then there is something. If a person perceives reality through the lenses of the past, it can only create more of what the person has already experienced. This is known to the mind, and it is limiting ourselves through the past. In fact, the mind to be used correctly should be used in this moment, right here, right now. What can I do to improve my life? If I'm hungry right now, I'm gonna cook food, but I'm not gonna think what I'm gonna do in a few hours because I'm investing myself in something that might not happen. To give an example, some time ago, I was recording a podcast, and in my mind, I was already somewhere else. I was like, I'm gonna go to a restaurant to eat food. After that, I'm gonna get a massage. And guess what? It started raining. And I couldn't do those things. And I lost all the energy that I invested in those things. And some people tend to blame the world. I know because I used to blame the world for things that I was lacking, for things that I was consciously limiting myself with, because what surrounds us is reflection of what is inside.
This gets into an interesting point that we allow the mind to use us. And I think our educational system doesn't teach us properly how to use the mind. It really gets into figuring things out, taking away our authority, that the answer's out there someplace. The educational system needs to be revamped to more align to our own wisdom.
I think that if we focus on things that we don't have influence over, we are giving away power. And then we can only change when those things change. I like a quote from a Sufi mystic, Rufi, that said, yesterday I was a fool trying to change the world. Today I'm a wise man changing myself.
Right. Because a lot of people don't like to look at their self. It's hard to look at their own reflection because of all of their stories that they have about themselves.
Yeah, I think people have this self-image that they glorify, yet itself, it's an illusion. In the end, you are who you are, and you cannot be anyone else. I cannot be Power Sam, and you cannot be Andy. That makes me unique, and that makes you unique. We need to embrace that the only person we can be in life is ourselves, because everyone else is already taken.
Right. And this creates a lot of issues in society because we're not taught to be ourselves. We're taught to mimic someone else or follow someone else's path. And we really need to step into our own paths. So, how do you get people to look inward from your coaching?
Step by step. And my offer is most done for you. I don't rely much on coaching. So I analyze a person, what he is struggling with, what his emotions are, and I let them go one by one. And that makes more space, not only for positive emotions, but awareness. And that is enough.
Right, it's another key word that I think a lot of people are missing, awareness. They don't have that self-awareness to identify what is going on. So how do you start building that awareness?
Well, all flowers bloom in due time. That means you cannot force a flower to bloom, as you cannot force a soul to bloom. If you try to do that, you will be growing the ego, not the soul. And what we need to take into consideration that West medicine, for example, is approximately 180 years old. So it's literally like a child compared to the arts from the East. Traditional Chinese medicine is 3,000 years old. Ayurveda is approximately 5,000 years old. They have been building this awareness step by step for a prolonged period of time. But once those art got imported to the West, their root got lost. Yoga, back in the day, people were terrified of yogis because those people were about psychic skills. And nowadays, yoga is about doing the hardest asana, having fun, having the greatest yoga pants. It literally rushed its food. The same thing happened when Bruce Lee imported Kung Fu. Kung Fu literally means hard work to develop the soul. But right now, as it looks, it got developed to mixed martial arts, where two people confront their ego to show which ego is better and stronger. So it seems what we consciously try to do seems that we try to achieve things, but we actually should do the opposite. The more love, the more time you give yourself, the process will take less and less time. Ideally, you start with the first brick. The first brick is awareness of the body. So you start moving the body in a way that allows you to release surplus energy. That might be kung fu or yoga. One of the bases of those arts is something called rooting, which is grounding your feet solidly into the ground and grasping it with your fingers. Not only that stimulates your well-being because it massages internal organs due to the amount of nerve ending in the foot, but it makes you more grounded, builds connection with the body. So I would start building awareness by having connection with the body.
Yeah, because the body is always here in this moment, and the mind is usually elsewhere.
Yeah. Yes.
So when you start to tune into the body, then you become here, start to build that awareness.
Once you are here right now, truly right here right now, that is sufficient. You are enjoying the movie that has been created for you before you have been born. I had a theory that to all incarnation, we have only one movie. But since we interfere with the process so much, it takes us thousands and thousands of incarnation to see the ending of the movie. And I believe once you see the ending of the movie, your role is finished. You can go and become one with the oneness again.
Hmm. That's an interesting idea. Once you realize that you're a character in the movie, it's like, wait, I don't have to do this anymore.
Yes. Once you let go, people might think that you're nothing but puppeteer in the hands of God. But since this is based on duality, you also become a puppeteer of your own destiny.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that's a good idea. To create your own destiny, that you do create your own destiny by your thought processes and by letting go of your attachment.
Yes, thoughts eventually will become your words that you're going to use. Words will become your actions, and actions will define your character, which will define the reality that you live in. So it all starts with this electrical charge going through the brain, which is called a thought. Scientists have found that each time an electric charge is created, it is followed by magnetic field release. Once you have a thought, there will be a corresponding emotion that follows it. So those two things are closely related because, again, we have been granted those fantastic tools to know who we are. And we need to experience ourselves first through the lenses of our beliefs, our thoughts, and logic, then through the lenses of our emotions. You need to know what you act when you are full of fear, full of grief, full of anger, full of sadness, full of joy, to know who you truly are, to know what reality truly is. And then, and only then, this window between the eyebrows, tears, and the soul takes peaks for what reality truly is. I like to explain it as if both of us see the same event. We will explain it differently in our head. So who's right, who's wrong? Usually, both of us will be wrong. And that is the harsh reality.
Right, because the mind is seeing everything through a lens. It's not really seeing, life as it is. So if we saw really life as it is, there wouldn't be any forms, so just energy patterns.
Recently, I observed that my girlfriend is super jealous, like literally jealous about everything. I didn't know why. I started to observe this pattern. I realized that the person that was jealous was actually me. I was creating all of that in my life. But if you told me before that I was jealous, I wasn't aware of that. And once with this awareness came to me, I was only then able to change. And once I let go of that, guess what? My girlfriend was no longer jealous. because I didn't have it in me. And if I don't have it in me, how can it manifest outside?
right? Because ultimately it is just us.
Truth, this existence is me versus me playing chess using very elaborate set of rules. So it's like you are me and I am you, but since we have so many lenses, we perceive ourselves completely different. But we are one at one level of being.
Trying to live in this relative world that creates a lot of duality and confusion and pain and suffering and all the
I
human
think
experiences.
duality is great. I think suffering is great as well, because without suffering, you could not experience joy. You couldn't enjoy the rainbow if it would be always good weather and rainbows. But if it rains from time to time, I gotta tell you, I miss. Back home, it was super cold and I miss it when it was raining snow outside and I could just sit in my bed. Right now, I don't have snow. I don't have this opportunity to lay in bed where it's super cold outside. Right now, there is only two temperatures, super hot and you cannot stand the temperature hot.
Right, because we need that contrast. Without contrast, you can't really see what you prefer.
Yes. In the end, it's all the same. It's how we act to those things. Duality is best explained as the day that fights through the night for the supremacy of the sky. When the day is the strongest, it willingly gives up to the night, and the night then becomes the strongest. And the night is the darkest just before the dawn, where it willingly gives the power to the day. Tao explained it as from light to darkness and to darkness to light. Without duality, humans are not able to exist and to know themselves. Only few special individuals are able to transcend that limitation called duality. And in fact, if you are so obsessed with doing that, the journey will be even longer. All of us at one stage have been kids. We get gifts on Christmas. We get to take naps during the day. But most of us, at all costs, wanted to be adults. And when we are adults, guess what? There are no longer naps. You don't get Christmas presents. You get to pay taxes. You get to work. And it seems that we need to be careful what we think because it might come true.
Right, because that's but we need this childlike wonder as we're an adult to make things easier because we keep striving for something, actually pushing it away, you're actually making it take longer to come into your reality. So it's really about embracing this childhood-like attitude to really allow
Mm.
those things to come in where there's no judgment, no criticism, you're just enjoying life.
And you just dance through it. I don't know if you know, but there has been great sage in the past called Lao Tzu. He has been, he has set foundation for Taoism, and his name, that Tzu, at the end of his name, can mean to think. It can mean a master, and it can mean child, because masters are usually very childlike because they are always curious of the world and they are always intrigued what happens next because life is full of wonders. But if you lose that childless curiosity of what's going to happen and you're going to do the same thing over and over again, providing the same set of information to the genes will downregulate them and create weaker and weaker proteins. Weaker and weakened proteins means weaker hand, weaker skin, weaker bones. Essentially, it means getting older and older.
It's this good reminder that we need this childhood innocence of like asking questions like what's happening here, just seeing everything as new, as fresh. But we don't do that. We see something, we attach a story to it. We don't really pursue and say, okay, it's happening again, but it's different. It's always a new experience, and that's childhood
Yes.
innocence.
I do believe that what we experience happens in patterns, and the patterns only changes so slightly to confuse you. It's something else, yet it is completely the same thing. Without that awareness and curiosity, you will be thinking that, oh my God, I'm always experiencing different issues. But in fact, it is the same issue over and over again till you build that awareness, till you are ready for the next stage. And once you reach that next stage, most people say that it's embarrassing that it took them so long, but it's better to start late than to never start at all.
It's about letting go of all that judgment. It just takes whatever is needed. You're here for
Mm.
your spiritual journey and growth. It took me 38 years of being very sick to figure out it doesn't have to be this way.
I like to think of this using a metaphor of a bow and arrow. Sometimes the best way is not moving forward, but backwards. And if you put pressure on bow, it's kind of like pushing the arrow behind. But once you let go, the force is so great that it moves forward many times over. It is a metaphor that sometimes we need to take a step back. Sometimes to move forward, we need to move back. We need to make space for new things to happen. The only way for new things to happen is to allow things to happen by giving them space.
Right. It's once again come back to patience to give things space, and you're more likely to receive it quicker as opposed to striving, which will push it away. That's been the theme of this today, just reminding us that to relax, allow things to come to you, and they will come to you because it is your reality.
You cannot want a new Lamborghini and on the other hand, have new Lamborghini. It doesn't really make sense. You either have something or you want something. It's create many issues, especially for people that operate on logic mostly, that they want to do good, but wanting to do good is in opposite of actually doing good.
So let's change the course here a little bit. So what's your day-to-day life like? How do you bring daily joy into your life?
Mm, There is a story about a Shelley is known for their adepts to train all day, every day, learning different styles of Kung Fu, Tai Chi, Qigong. One lifestyle is not enough to master them all. Yet, there was a master playing guitar all day long, using only one string, always happy. So, as the story goes, a student approached the master and asked him the following question: Master, all of us train hard every day, all day, learning different forms. Yet here you are, laughing, enjoying life, playing your guitar, only using one string. Why is that? The master smiled, because I already found my song when others are still searching. My song is called Wu Wei, acting by not acting, and that gives me space to just be. If my body tells me to do Tai Chi Quan, I'm going to do Tai Chi Quan. If my body tells me to do Kung Fu, I'm going to do Kung Fu. But if I'm going to be very rigid, very strict with my perception of how it should look, like I'm going to meditate in the morning for an hour, while I might not sleep well, I might wake up anxious, depressed, and then meditation will amply amplify that state. In fact, the more restrictions you give yourself, the worse your life will be. As a human beings, we need to provide the minimal amount of energy required for us to thrive. So that means you eat just the right amount of food. If you don't enough, you won't have energy to live. If you will eat more than enough, you will be so occupied with digesting that you won't have energy to live. The same goes with physical and mental realms as well. If you don't move at all, you will become lazy. But if you move at all cost, all the time, you will become depleted of energy. So it's about balance. Yogis like to say that you need to exercise to the point that you have a delicate sweat on the body. So it's approximately 50% of your potential. The same goes with mental ways of developing. And this is one that should be treated with the most cautiousness. I have been told several times that when doing Kung Fu, which is developed to let go of surplus of energy of the heat in fascia that surrounds the organ, you should ignore being tired. You should work through it. But using Qigong, Neigigong, you should be very cautious and ideally you should do less and less. When I started doing Qigong, I was already advanced. I was master. So moving energy was very tiring for me. I could work in the gym for many hours, but Qigong, 5 minutes, and I needed to lay down because everything out of nowhere was moving when I conditioned my body with punishing itself in the gym for a prolonged period of time because, well, I was abused and bullied. And instead of embracing those emotions, I choose to cope. So I choose to cope with being a good fighter, being having a great body that nobody would challenge me. But the truth is, nobody was challenging me. I was challenging everyone. So again, it's about finding what works for you and staying true to it.
Right. And that's an important point that you're getting to is not getting the mind locked into rituals that I meditate every day at this time, I do this at this time. Once again, they become restrictions. You have to flow with life. What is your body needing in this moment? What is your mind needing in this moment? Then acting on that. And
There is everything outside is always changing. If you would be only wearing a t-shirt and shorts, it won't work if outside is raining snow. That teaches us that if everything is flowing, we should flow as well. The only rigid thing in life is that bodies. The more rigid you become, the more energy obstruction within the body becomes, the more restrictions you put yourself. I need to do this, I need to eat that. And only then I will be healthy. And most likely, even if you do all those things, you won't be healthy because your body will be so stressed that it won't have energy to heal yourself.
mhm, you're starting to create more interference within the body and life in general. The more that you're striving, once again, the more you're pushing it away. So it's really about relaxing into our essence and acting from this deeper place.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very simple, but the mind likes to overcomplicate things.
The mind itself is like literally a dog chasing its own tail. I don't think the mind would even know what to do if we reach the goals. A mountain is top of the mountain is reached. The top of the mountain is the bottom of the next mountain.
Right? Because you're always climbing mountains. You're
Yeah.
never quite done the journey. It's always unfolding.
Yes. And that when I'm so sure about something, when I have this belief that life is this way, God is usually gonna show me that this is only my belief. And he's gonna create something completely opposite to show me that I am limiting myself. In fact, I do believe that a person is enslaved to their beliefs. And the only way to be free is to let go. And then you truly become this essence. You become more and more energy and less matter. And you can move in ways that before haven't really been anticipated and you couldn't even dream about it.
Right? 'Cause that's easier said than done for a lot of people to let go of those attachments, those beliefs. So it's really about developing those systems or tools to help you do that. Because it's really hard for the mind to let go. It actually makes an attachment to it. It's really an interesting paradox.
We are attached to so many different things, to how we perceive ourselves, to our emotions. In fact, since emotions are nothing else than chemicals running through our veins, sooner or later the body itself will become addicted to those emotions and will crave those emotions and will push us to experience those, keeping us trapped in this loop.
Right. It's just about relaxing, enjoying life, have that childhood innocence, and allowing life to come to you. So, Andy, as we're wrapping up here, is there any last nuggets of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience?
Relax. Take it easy. If you are truly enough, your actions will be enough and your outcome will be enough. And that is enough. You are perfect as you are. If you have been created by God, you need to respect His creation and understand that you are perfect as you are because God doesn't make mistakes.
Right, that's brilliant wisdom to leave our audience with today. So, thank you for joining the conversations, Andy. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you as well.